Hey guys, I've brought my Marincess deck for you today, and this is a really good deck for building up a sort of towers type, very difficult to deal with boss monster, and then being able to OTK very easily afterwards. So let's get into the profile. Firstly, we have 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tang. Now, all the Marincesses generally have an effect on field and an effect in graveyard. So if Blue Tang is summoned, you can send a Marincess monster from your deck to your graveyard, except itself. And then if it's sent to the graveyard as material for the link summon of a water monster, you can then look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add any Marincess card to your hand, then shuffle it into your deck. This allows you to look for Seahorse, it allows you to find Battle Ocean or Wave if you want them, and it can add itself for future plays if that's all you do find. We then have 3 copies of Marincess Seahorse. Now, Seahorse can special summon itself to a zone a link monster points to once per turn, and then if it's in the graveyard, in a different turn to the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard and then special summon a water monster from your hand to the zone a link monster points to. This is one of your main hand extenders. Hopefully you'll be finding this off Blue Tang, and that allows for really easy link climbing plays. We then have 3 copies of Marincess Pascalis. This is probably the best normal summon of the deck. It special summons any Marincess monster from your hand. So if you special summon Blue Tang, if you normal summon this with a Blue Tang in hand, you'll then get Blue Tang's effect to send a card to the graveyard, and you've immediately got material for a link 2. And then in the graveyard, it recycles any of your spells and traps. Again, can't be banished the same turn it's sent to the graveyard, so that is quite important. We then have 2 copies of Marincess Mandarin. This is your basic extender. It can special summon itself from the graveyard, as long as you have 2 or more Marincess monsters. So this is one of your prime targets to send with Blue Tang, because it can bring itself back in the same turn that it's in the graveyard. So that's it for the Marincess monsters. The Marincesses themselves are very compact engine, which allows us to play multiple other engines and hand traps in the deck. So we have a frog engine, we have 3 swap frogs, and 1 dupe frog and 1 Ronin Toadin. Now, this obviously exists. They're all water monsters, so they can all be used as link fodder, but their main reason is for making copies of Totally Awesome. Swap Frog can special summon itself by discarding any other water monster, and that's not once per turn, so you can bounce it with its own effect and summon it again to mill 2 cards from your deck to your graveyard. And then Ronin Toadin can banish any frog monster in the graveyard to special summon itself. Dupe Frog is there just as a target for Ronin Toadin. So that allows you to make Totally Awesome really easily. We then have 2 copies of Silent Angler. This is a free special summon. However, it locks you out of special summoning from your hand for the rest of the turn. So you need to make sure that this is one of the last plays you make before you start your link plays. You want this to be the last thing in your hand that you're going to special summon. Otherwise, you'll end up locking yourself and not making the best board you can. But it's a really cheap extender. It's a level 4, so it can make Bahamut Shark with, say, a copy of Blue Tang or something like that, which just, again, allows us another really easy way of making Totally Awesome. And then the final monster we've got in the deck that isn't a hand trap is 1 copy of Scripton. Scripton is another cyberse monster, and it's water, so again, it can help us make any of our link plays. And you can banish a cyberse monster from your graveyard, except itself, special summon it from your hand, and then if it's sent to the graveyard as the material of a cyberse monster, you can target 1 banished monster, shuffle it into the deck. It allows you to recycle any of your banished Marincesses, or any of your frogs that you've banished for Ronin Toadin. That's that. We then have our hand traps. We have 3 copies of Skullmeister. This is to help prevent cards like, we hate cards like Elder Encientus, or Shadol Apkalone, allowing our opponent to search their copy of Schism or blow up our field spell. That's really, really annoying for us. Any other graveyard effects as well, such as Tri-Brigade effects. We can essentially put a hard stop on their Fractal, which locks them into their Tri-Brigade, which stops a lot of their Tri-Brigade setups if they don't have an already stacked graveyard. Very, very useful hand trap, and because of its recent reprint in Ancient Guardians, is now really, really cheap. We then have 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. Now, we do some banishing, but we only really banish on our turn, so this is a fine hand trap to play. It really helps stop our opponent from using cards like Shadol Schism, because they can't banish stuff from their graveyard. It stops Tri-Brigade plays, because they can't banish stuff. And it stops some of the Dragon Link plays as well. They can't use cards like the mini Chaos Dragons from that as well. And then, finally, for hand traps, we have 3 Fantastical Dragon Phantasmae. Really, really useful card for us. Allows us to sculpt our hand, search for more hand traps or engine pieces if we're going second, and is target more protection for our Link monsters, and is just a 2400 beta that we can stick onto the field very, very easily, and is quite cheap now as well, and is also a very good card to have in your collection. Right, so that's it for the monsters. We're now getting on to the spell lineup. We have 1 Marincess Battle Ocean. This is the heart and soul of the deck, but we only need 1 because it's really easy to search. All Marincess monsters gain 200 attack, and then each one gains 600 attack for each Marincess card equipped to it. If you summon a monster in the extra monster zone, remember it's got to be in the extra monster zone, using Crystal Heart as a link material, it's unaffected by card effects. When you link summon a Marincess monster to the extra monster zone, equip up to 3 link monsters from your graveyard with different names to that link summon monster. This is how you make a beta with 4500 plus attack. It protects your monsters, it makes them huge, and so on. It's how you facilitate your OTKs, and it's the heart and soul of your deck. You need to protect this card. We can get it back, but obviously losing the protection that it offers can be very, very detrimental. 3 copies of Cynet Mining. It searches just about every card in our deck. It's really, really useful in that regard, and it helps put cards in our graveyard. It can get Ronin Toadins out of our hand, or the Dupe Frog out of our hand. It can put Mandarin into the graveyard as well, if that's in our hand. So we don't really mind drawing this. We have 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Again, sends a Mandarin, sends a Frog. Very, very useful. Allows us to extend further with frog plays and so on. 1 Called by the Grave. Again, this is to stop any of our graveyard effects. If any of our cards get ashed, stops that. Stops cards, again, that abuse the graveyard. Very, very useful card for us. Stopping hand traps and so on. You all know what Called by the Grave does. So, finally, we get onto the traps. We have Marincess Wave. This is the reason to play Marincess. If you control a Marincess Link monster, target 1 monster your opponent controls, negate that monster's effect. If you control a Link 2 or higher Marincess monster, all face-up monsters you currently control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of this turn. And if you control a Link 3 or higher Marincess monster, you can activate this card from your hand. This card is absolutely amazing. It protects every single card you have. It stops. It's an interruption, it's protection, and it can't be sniped by cards like Cosmic Cyclone because you can activate it from your hand. It's also searchable with a lot of your other cards, so is an absolutely incredible card and part of the reason to play this deck. And then finally, to round out the deck, we have 3 copies of Paleozoic Dynamiscus. This is spot removal. It helps remove cards, problem cards like Winder that we struggle to deal with. It helps remove cards, it helps remove back row if it's face up, things like Eldritch spells, traps, or problematic field spells. We can stop with this, and again, it gives us more water extension when we activate our copies of Wave, and also, again with that, allows us to make Toad more easily. The fact that this deck can put up a 4500 attack body with Toad backup is what makes the deck strong. So that's the main deck. 40 cards exactly, so let's get onto the extra deck. We have 1 Marincess Great Bubble Reef. During each standby phase, you can banish a water monster from your graveyard or field, draw a card. Already has a really, really useful effect for us, just allowing us to dig 1 card deeper into our deck. This card gains 600 attack. Each time a monster is banished face up, this card gains 600 attack for each until the end of the turn. So, buffs its own attack again, helps your OTKs. And you can send 1 water monster from your hand to the graveyard and special summon 1 banished Marincess monster. So, again, it sets up, gives us extra draws, allows us to cycle Marincesses out of our hand to bring back ones that we've banished, either for their effects or to draw off this card. And it's the largest extra deck monster in total in the Marincess extra deck. We then have 1 copy of Marincess Wonderheart. This is your other Link 4. Once per battle, during battle damage calculation, you can special summon 1 Marincess monster equipped to this card. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage from that battle. Equip that special summon monster to this card during the end phase. If this card is destroyed by an opponent's card, special summon 1 Link 3 or lower Marincess monster from your graveyard. This is how you facilitate your OTK. By summoning this with a Battle Ocean on the field, you get to obviously equip 3 Marincess monsters to it. This allows you to bring out a Marbled Rock or something similar from the Spell and Trap zone to push for that extra bit of damage once this card's attacked. And then if it goes, it replaces itself. This is how you facilitate your OTKs. We have 2 copies of Marincess Marbled Rock. This is our biggest Link 3, which is obviously very helpful. It gets to recycle a Marincess card in our graveyard, so it can recycle Wave, it can recycle Battle Ocean if they are destroyed, or we've used a copy of Wave, or it can recycle any of our monsters for continuing plays the turn after. And then if an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can send a Marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard. Monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage. So, has a bit of a protection effect, less useful than the recycling effect, but still useful. And its main use, though, is as a Link, the biggest Link 3 that we can bring out with Wonderheart if we haven't got Great Bubble Reef in circulation. 2 Marincess Coral Anemone. You've seen this in some of my other decks. It's absolutely insane water sport. It special summons essentially most of your deck from the graveyard, for no real cost, other than locking you into water monsters, which, spoilers, our entire extra deck is. The only card that isn't in our main deck that we're even considering summoning is Phantasme. And then if it's sent to the field, to the graveyard, you can target a Marincess card in your graveyard and add it to the hand. And that includes, if it's link summoned, obviously, so you can pitch things off Blue Tang, and then link this away with something else and add the card you pitch with Blue Tang back to your hand. Similarly, it lets you bring back your frogs, so you can make toads more easily, and so on. We have 2 copies of Marincess Blue Slug. Marincess Blue Slug gets you back cards from your graveyard. So it immediately replaces the link material you used to make it, which is very, very useful. You can only link summon it once per turn, and it will lock you into water monsters, but as I mentioned, that's essentially irrelevant for us. One Marincess Crystal Heart. This card's text is pretty much irrelevant. Its main use is for the protection effect with Battle Ocean, rather than its own effect. It can stop monsters from being destroyed by battle or you taking battle damage, but you're pretty much only ever making this when you are going to link it off into one of your larger links. One Marincess Sea Angel. This is how you search your wave or your Battle Ocean. If it's summoned, add one... Oh no, it doesn't search wave, sorry. It only searches Battle Ocean. Add one Marincess spell from your deck to your hand. This is how you search Battle Ocean. Finally, for the non-Marincess links, we have one Miss Starboy. This helps you facilitate your OTKs, and can also, if it is destroyed, although unlikely because you're summoning this to push for game, you can recycle a water monster. One Splash Mage, two cyberse monsters. The entire Marincess archetype is, you can target one cyberse monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but negate its effects. Cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except cyberse monsters. Mainly just another generic Link 2 extender that we can use if, say, we've already used our Coral Anemone that turn. So that's the Link monsters. For the Xyz monsters, we're only playing 3, and they are 2 copies of Totally Awesome, which is absolutely incredible in this deck, as an Omni Negate and an extender, and steals a card from your opponent. We can bring this out using the Frog engine, or we can bring this out using Bahamut Shark. Either works. Ideally, we want to bring it out with the frogs, because then we get the added benefit of being able to summon more frogs from our deck, and it having materials, but either works. So, that is Marincess. As I said, it's a combo deck aiming to put up a really, really difficult to out monster on the field. So I hope you enjoyed that profile. And for upgrades, you could build it more as a going second deck. You could put some kaijus in there or similar going second cards for perhaps making more easily accessible OTKs. A copy of Access Code Talker, as would always go well in any deck focusing on OTKs, although beware that Access Code Talker can't be used if you're waterlocked. Again, the classics, the copies of Forbidden Droplets, the copies of Pot of Prosperities for going first, or the Talents if you're going second. You've all heard them time and time again. I'm not gonna harp on about those. But yes, if you've enjoyed that, please like, subscribe, and so on, and I will see you all again soon.